Oh, that's much better. I can see
Um,
you better.
Great. Um,
Yeah, I've been really curious about you've mentioned a couple of times you had brain therapy, and I'm curious about what was it that led you to pursue that,
right.
and what did it entail?
So in 2014, my mom was in a car accident. She was rear-ended and she was in the car with three of her other friends. She was in the back seat and like nobody got terribly hurt amongst them and she seemed fine. But she was sitting in the back seat and she'd been leaning forward and she had her head on the headrest of the front seat because she was looking at something on her phone. So when the car hit them from behind, they were stopped at a traffic light. Her head had this extra 2 feet of whipping motion to go back that the other people in the car didn't. So nobody
Oh,
else
yeah.
had any issues, but, and she got out and she called the insurance company and it seemed like she was okay. And then 5 days later, she's putting nail polish on her toes and the other hand dumps the nail polish out while because she's focused on what this hand is doing. And then she'd like look off to the side of the road and she'd start veering off to the side of the road, and so she couldn't drive. So that was when Shanti was about a year and a half old. Prem and I were just going back to San Diego for the second time. We'd moved out of our first place, traveled for the summer, and we thought we were going to settle back down in San Diego. And then my mom got in this car accident. So that was the first time we moved to Florida, was to just help, because she was caring for my grandmother at that time, who was 93 or something like that. And so we came out here and took her to doctor's appointments and she has cottages she rents in Michigan. So just trying to help run the businesses and do everything that her brain just wasn't, she'd get headaches and couldn't be on the computer long or anything. So, I mean, we just happened by a chiropractor. We drove by one time on a rainy day and I remember it was called Brainworks Chiropractic. And I was like, that's weird. Like, what do chiropractors usually do with brains? And so she went in there and the guy worked with her and was helpful. And he's like, I really think you should go to this place in Atlanta. This is the main, it was called the Carrick Brain Centers. And so we took her up there and they did all this like high tech testing. It was for 5 days. And by the end of it, she could drive again. And like she had her brain back. It was incredible. And so while we were there, I remember saying to them, one day when I have the money, I'm going to come back here and get my brain back just from having a baby. Because she was only 18 months old by then. But like the physical, whatever nutrients she sapped from me, plus the lack of sleep, that I remember even then my brain was kind of on the edge. So then fast forward another 3 years later or something, and I had gotten mono at the one of the camps that I went to, and so and that can lead or cause all these autoimmune things that also can trigger like inflammation in the brain and stuff. So I didn't know that any of this was going on back then, but I just knew that all of a sudden, like I couldn't talk to my kids while I was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I would have to like focus on what I was doing here and I couldn't hear what they were saying and I couldn't talk while I was doing that. I just could only focus on like one thing at a time. And even that was hard to tune out everything else that was going on. And
Wow.
I would say that 120 times a day in a conversation like this, I would forget what I was going to say, especially if we got interrupted or you asked a question and then I'm like, what was I saying? And it wasn't like, let me think back to where we were. It was like a blank white wall that I could not get through or remember anything. And then also if I got emotional or if like my husband and I had any conflict, as soon as I got upset, I just like I can associate something in the front of my brain. I just remember being like, I can't deal with this. Like I can't even think. I couldn't think to have a conversation while I was upset. It was just like overstimulated
Mm,
mode. And my mom and I were having a hard time back then. And so I remember we got some support from a friend of ours to sort of help mediate some of our challenges. And I remember realizing she doesn't get how under capacity I am operating at. She thinks, and she's expecting me to act the way that I did 2 or 3 years ago. And I can't do that. Like, my brain's not working that well. She expects me to answer her quickly. I can't answer her quickly.
Oh.
And I used to have all this capacity to hold emotional depth and content and charge with people, and I had zero capacity for that. And so I think it came out of that conversation that we said, maybe I better look into this and like get brain, like go see if that place is open and go there. So that place wasn't open anymore. And or they had kind of changed the way that they were offering it. But there was a place in Dallas that was doing the same thing. So I remember getting on the phone with them. I can't remember, maybe I told you this part, but and telling them what was going on. And the woman said, "And how old are you?" And I said, 34. And she said, "Yeah, you should not be having these problems. We can definitely help you." And it was $5,000 for 5 days. And I remember it was the first time I'd ever felt so grateful to be able to pay someone $5,000. Like, I was putting it on a 0% credit card at that point, but I'm like, I don't give a fuck. If you can help me, like, it doesn't matter what the price is. I want to get my brain back so that I can get my relationships back and get my life back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was in maybe September. And then I ended up booking to go in November. And I can't remember how much I told you, but going into it, my big fear, they took some of my like blood tests and stuff, but they didn't do any diagnostics before that. So my big fear was that that they would tell me that there was nothing wrong with me when I got there, because I didn't, like, is it just mommy brain? Like, a lot of, like, I'm used to operating at such a high level compared to some people. Some people just, their brains don't work at the way that mine did, but I noticed the loss. So when I got there, they do these balance tests. So they have a lot of like things with your eyes closed, things with your eyes open, where the walls are moving and you feel like you're moving, but you're not really. And then they do kind of a comprehensive computer memory test and reactions, like your reflexes. And I didn't have to worry about them not finding something wrong with me. I didn't do well on the balance things. And on the memory tests, I got in the 30th percentile, which means that I did worse than 70% of the average people. With
Wow.
the bottom 30, I was in the bottom 30% of what people can remember, which, I mean, I went to University of Chicago. Like, I'm used to being at I had top of, 99 percentile or 97 and everything in high school. So to be that far down was like, holy shit. Okay. Like, great. There's something wrong with me. That's good to know. You can see what I've been feeling. It was actually really so validating to see. Yeah. 'Cause the therapy that they're doing is not really high tech. That's what I knew from when they did with my mom. It's like eye exercises and core exercises. And there's a little bit of higher tech stuff, but it's like memory games sometimes, but a lot of just working with balance and eye movements. And so, but because of the tests that they do, they can see like, okay, I need to work on moving my eyes up and to the left, whereas my mom maybe needed it over and to the right. And so I knew that even though I knew kind of what the exercises were, that I wanted them to be able to tailor it to what exactly I needed.
Yeah.
And so they're sitting there, and she'll literally, the physical, I guess she's not a physical therapist, maybe she is, but she's like sitting right in front of me like this. And one of the exercises is she has a little like yard sale dot sticker on her fingers like this. And when she goes like this, I'm supposed to look at the other finger. And it's like training your impulse is to look at the thing that moves. And this is like your executive brain to like calm down and be like, nope, you're not going to do that. You're going to do what I tell you to do. And so, so there's a lot of stuff where it was just like working one-on-one real close like this. And it was fun, but it was when she would go like this, and then I would like stare into space for a second because I would get confused and I couldn't process something. It was like so empathetic, such good empathy for me to be like, she sees why I'm slow. Like my mom doesn't get why I'm not answering her, but, or like when, but this physical therapist could see in my eyes, like, okay, her brain's not caught up with what I've asked her to do yet. So that was really supportive. So I went there for a week. Monday they do tests. I don't even remember if we did much therapy on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday we did therapy. Wednesday I walked out of the doors and I drove home and I was like, this is what it felt like when I was driving in college. I'm not like focusing on which lane are the cars in and is it safe to go right now. Like my brain was just tracking and taking it all in pretty effortlessly. Just drive. And I remember walking out on Wednesday saying, I feel like a happy human being again instead of an overstimulated defensive animal. Like that's what it felt like my whole life not my whole life, but like that whole last year with the family and the kids and the noise. And it was just like too much stimulation on my system. Then more exercises on Thursday. And on Friday, I took the same tests that they had me do on Monday, and I got in the 99th percentile.
Wow.
It was incredible. And like one of the tests they have you do is they show you some squiggles and you have to recognize whether you've seen that squiggle before or not. And I remember on Monday being like, how the fuck are you supposed to remember a squiggle? Like, how do you know if you've seen a squiggle before? Like, there was just no way. And then on Friday, I was like, oh, that's the paperclip squiggle. That's the bow tie squiggle. Like, there was something in my brain that was connecting it to other things that made it easy to remember.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So I did. And then I got back because my mom had my kids for that week. And when I got back, just riding in the car on the way home, like, the kids could interrupt and I could still talk to my mom, and my mom was telling the kids to quiet down because it was too loud for her, but like the noise wasn't overstimulating on my system. So it was life-changing. I mean, besides the fact that while I was in Dallas is also when I matched with my girlfriend on Bumble or on Tinder. And so then in a month or so later, we started dating. And so she's like hugely changed my life. And then there's a guy that I met and matched with on Bumble when I was in Dallas. And I just saw him again this week for the first time in a year and a half because he's in Orlando. So it's like the connections that I made there. It was a big investment to say, oh, I'm going to go spend $5,000 to sharpen my brain. And it's been life-changing.
Yeah, money well spent just from hearing you talk. It's like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it let's see. I feel like there was maybe something else. I don't know. Oh, so then I had brain exercises and I was doing them really consistently for maybe 3 to 6 months after I was there. And, but I haven't been doing them as much lately. So I can still, like, I just am very sensitive to how my brain is working or not. And, so sometimes I can, I'll just notice, like if I haven't slept that much this week, so it's a little bit longer for me to think of words or to get back on track onto what I was saying or whatever. But then it's like, oh, okay, I need to sleep. Or if I eat dairy, I can feel my brain not work as well. But I think if I were doing the exercises, that would probably all have a little bit less of an impact, but I just haven't. And it's also a little tricky because the exercises that I was doing then aren't hard for me anymore. So I actually have to come up with you have to, because it's like moving your arm and your leg in opposite figure eights at the same time, which used to be hard. And now my brain's got it wired so well, that doesn't challenge me in the same way. And I'm not even quite sure what the next thing is to do. So.
Sorry about all that moving around. My arm was getting tired.
Yeah, that's fine.
My arm was getting tired. So I was trying to find a more comfortable place to be. I could really relate to how you talked about being overstimulated, feeling overstimulated, and your brain just saying, I can't do that. And so it's encouraging to hear that there is there are resources out there to help one to recover from something like that.
Yeah.
And just as something as simple as childbirth, not simple, but
yeah.
that's amazing.
And they work with stroke victims. They work a lot with like hockey players or athletes who have concussions and then are trying to recover like their, like however quickly their reflexes work and everything to get back in the game. So it was so fun. It was like a little bit challenging, but it's like I get this one-on-one fun connection with this person because I like learning things and challenging myself. I was like, I wish I could just get my friends together and we come for a week and we do like brain therapy vacation for a week where we just all go and do this. That would be so awesome. So
yeah.
We still can. It's been interesting that I guess maybe they just haven't figured out the marketing. I mean, not the marketing, but the business model or something, because the place that my mom went to soon after closed down. I mean, they were charging a few $1,000s a day also. And then the place that I went to now has changed names at least. I don't know if it's closed down exactly or what. Like, it just seems like I don't know if they're not covered by insurance. They took insurance. I think they took some people's insurance, but I didn't have insurance.
Ooh.
The one place that's opened in Florida doesn't take insurance. Still does that because I just looked into that for a friend of mine. But yeah, just the idea that you don't have to settle for it and that like it's reversible and that you can do something about it is huge.
Wow.
And I'm sensitive now too to when I can pick up in other people when it's like, oh, there's a little bit of a brain lag here. Like that took an extra half a second longer for you to answer that question or to think of what you wanted to say, then I bet it normally, who knows what normal is for any given person, but I'm like, I bet there's some processing thing going on because a healthier brain that I know of doesn't necessarily need that much time sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it's interesting too, like concussions, you could have had a concussion when you were 16 that didn't knock you out. And then when you were 45, you got in a little car accident that didn't knock you out. But because you had that earlier one, your body is more sensitive to everyone after that. And it's just hard to know how these things impact us.
Yeah, actually for me, and that's why I was so curious, for me, I've had multiple incidences. When I was 13, I flipped off a trampoline. I was in gymnastics and I flipped off a trampoline and I was knocked unconscious. My cat is like, who are you talking to? Please pet me.
Come on in, kitty.
And I was thrown from a horse, and in my first marriage, my husband was first and only marriage. My husband was really abusive and knocked me unconscious one time. And I have people get really impatient with me when I don't answer right away, when I do struggle. And it's frustrating. It brings up anger in me, and then I want to.
It's so frustrating. It's so, I don't think I could understand it if I hadn't lived through it, but I just know what it's like to be like, you don't get it. The train is not moving and you putting pressure on me is not going to help the train.
It's not helping.
Faster.
Yeah. No? Yeah. Yeah. There's, at work, my supervisor is that way. I mentioned to you that he is also my twin flame. And I've never had so much growth with a person as with him. It's just been, it's been good and bad. It's just been a whole range of things. And he gets really impatient with me. And I just want to punch him.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's hard when people think that either way, that they're like, oh, that's just how you are and you're dumb or you're slow or something. And it's like, no, it's not a matter of not being bright. And
Yeah.
or else they're like, yeah, or else they think you're doing it on purpose, which you're obviously not doing it on purpose, or it's just it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. That feeling of people thinking that you're dumb. I have that happen a lot. I had at this retreat, actually, I was standing outside and there was a kind of a wall of bushes with flowers on these bushes in front of me, and I was watching the bees. There were tons of little bees running all over these flowers, and a lady who was standing beside me said, "There are a bunch of bees on those bushes, be careful." And it's like, I can see the bees, thank you. In fact, I've been watching the bees for several minutes. And so it was later that I was thinking, what was it? Was it her unawareness, or did she make an assumption about me? And what was it about me that caused her to make that assumption? That I don't know what she was thinking. I almost wanted to ask, but I didn't want to put her on the spot either.
Like she
What
actually
was it?
thought you didn't see, did she actually think you didn't see them and didn't know they were there and were just staring into space, or what?
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And it was almost like she did make an assumption that I wasn't smart enough to figure that out, which triggered anger in me.
Yeah.
Then I wanted to, and it was a pivotal moment for me, because I tend to react like that now, where it triggers anger. It's like it's
And had you
I
had prior interactions with her where that would have led her to think that you weren't operating well? Like, did she know you at all?
She doesn't know me very well. We've seen each other in public places. We've seen each other at events with this same instructor, and so I've had some interaction with her, but not a lot. She doesn't know, who I am,
Yeah.
and I think that's what kept me from reacting in a way that I would have regretted later. Was, she doesn't know me.
Right.
And there's no point in me trying to explain to her who I am in this moment. So I'll just let her have her belief about me.
Unless it makes you feel better, then that would be one point that it could make to explain to her in the moment, would be to just kind of be seen and known for that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that sounds interesting.
Well, it makes me want to look into finding a place to refer people to who do have insurance, right? Because you have insurance through your job.
I do.
That I'm pretty sure that the one that I went to would bill insurance, but now they've changed hands or closed or something. But I'm in texting touch with the doctor who worked with me, and he moved to Colorado. But and he's working at a clinic there, and so I think he gave me some places to. Wonder if I still have it. Referred me to some places. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up after. I gotta. Oh yeah, there it is. Will. Yeah, so he told me they can come see me at Van Family Chiropractic. Oh no, he's in Addison, Texas. I don't know why I thought he moved to California. He said we're out of network with insurance though. Other options are Revive Treatment Centers in Denver or Thrive Neuro in Atlanta. I don't know if they do it insurance or not. So I'll look into those.
Yeah, if I could find something like that takes insurance, that would be perfect.
Yeah. It's so the highest tech thing that they have is it's like a space chair that rotates you in 360 degrees, and they do it based on how your eye tracks and moves. So with my mom, they really it was basically like spinning in an office chair. She just went to the left 6 times or something. But with
Wow.
it was like they put me backwards, to the right, over, and back up. And there's this tape in front of you with a dot so you're staring at the dot the whole time, but the background is moving while you're turning. like that's the most high-tech thing that they have in there. Otherwise, it's like they have a piece of paper that has some black dots on the wall, and they have you sit 3 feet from the wall, and then the therapist will hold your head and go like this and move it really slowly while you're looking at the dot. And they're looking for places where your eye like jumps or skips, and or where you blink, and then they're like trying to smooth it out so that you can look at it without without any of that happening.
Wow, that's incredible.
Like up and down. So it's not that high tech. It's not like we can't do it. It's just the testing that they do that helps you figure out, do you do like they don't, the thing with the executive functioning brain, they don't do that with everybody. That was what they realized that I needed based on what my test said or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So all of the work that you did was tailored to you. It wasn't just a
right
size fits all.
Yeah, which made it easier to do and to want to keep doing. I think that's partly why I have a hard time following up with the exercises now. I'm like, my brain is so different than it was back then. Like doing these things that they told me to be doing are so easy. Like, is it worth putting the time and energy into doing these?
Probably don't even need them anymore.
Well, I don't know. This conversation is getting me to be like, well, maybe I should just try doing it for a week again and get more diligent about it, because it made such a difference. And my brain's still good and sharp and I'm doing pretty well, but it's still definitely, it feels precarious, sort of like, okay, I stayed up too late 2 nights in a row. Like if I don't get a good night's sleep tonight, I'm going to really be having a hard time tomorrow. Something like that.
I think that a lot of that's normal too. Our bodies can only handle so much. If we tend to burn the candle at both ends, then eventually it gets us.
And it's the difference between like comparing when you're 36 to when you're 23, probably, in terms of what you can tolerate and be capable of. But,
right. I'm 60 and always trying to compare myself to 30, and it just, it would be cool though to, if there was a potential to get some of that back. I think I've always had, my mom had a difficult birth when I was born, and I think I've always had a problem. I think there's always been a problem with my brain. Just the way that woman reacted to me this weekend. I mean, that's happened more times than I can count. And it is frustrating, because I find it's like there's a part of my mind that knows it can go faster, and it tries to go faster, but it's like there's like a disconnect between what my brain is trying to do and what my mouth is trying to do. It's hard to describe.
Yeah. I get it. And I wouldn't have if I hadn't been there. But I just was like, just give me a minute and then I'll be able to tell you.
Have a little compassion and back off.
It's just not coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it also, like, we need to be, I mean, whether it was my mom or whatever, like, because we look fine it's like any other hidden disability, I guess. Like, we look fine on the outside, and so they don't know what's going on. So I don't know how you can go with your supervisor guy, but to have a conversation that says, like, listen, I'm a bright person. I think there's something going on with my brain functioning, processing things right now. I'm fine doing the tasks that I have, but this is what's hard for me. Like, for me, it's like when there's an emotional charge or when there's a background sound, it's very difficult for me to focus. And so this is what I need. And because they don't know. And that's the thing. Yeah. So, like, all of my health issues, I look fine. I look great. I'm young. I'm pretty. I put on some weight, but like, otherwise I look fine and I look normal. And it's not like, it's whether it's the fatigue or the brain or whatever, they don't get it. And they don't know unless we tell them.
Yeah. I like that. It's whether or not he would be patient enough to listen to me. I find myself constantly having to tell them, let me finish. Let me finish my thought, what I was trying to say before you jump in and try to answer me, because what you're trying to answer me to may not be the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. So not interrupting you. That's a big one. That was really hard for me because I'm like, fuck, if you interrupt me, I'm not even going to be able to remember what I was talking about or where I was going.
Yeah. And there's a point where I get so frustrated, I want to cry. And then if I'm at that point, it's like, forget it. It's, you know, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Get away from me.
Yeah.
We offer.
Okay. I'm looking at the one website I found that he referred me to, but it doesn't, I don't know if it doesn't say anything about insurance, but I'm going to start an email to you, because if I don't do it while I'm on the phone with you, then it's just going to be another thing on my to-do list that gets pushed down the list.
I tend to do that too. It's like, well, if I don't write this down now, I'll forget, and then I may not get back to it.
That's what it was for me. Was I just noticed how much I felt like I was coping. Like I was just like dealing with things, but I was coping and working around my brain functioning, and I had forgotten that it didn't even know that it used to be better than that.
Yeah.
Well, on a change of, there's two things that I'm excited to tell you about, but one is I had never heard the phrase twin flame until you told me last time we talked. Then a week later, I wanted to get some new pictures for my website and for my business, because I've never had pictures professionally taken. And so it's kind of a long story, but and a fun like synchronicity story of how I found this woman. But I found her on Facebook, and what was I going to say? Oh, and she does intuitive readings. So she's a photographer and she does intuitive readings. And
wow,
I'm helping out with her business, and it took incredible pictures of me. So one thing I'm excited about is last Saturday we did it, and we took 5.5 hours. I must have done like 15 different wardrobe changes. Like the pictures came out so good. And I feel like I can step into like charging $3,500 for a day of coaching. Like these are the pictures that kind of person would be charging that much money for, and like can deliver. So I'm thrilled about those. And when I was talking to her, she had told me about her husband, who's, I don't know, 15 to 20 years younger than her. And she said, and we're twin flames and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's the second time I've heard about that this week. And the second time that the guy's the younger one. And so then when she did an intuitive reading for me, she said that the relationship with my girlfriend, she kind of said it was one of those relationships for a season, like that it wasn't something that I was going to be coming back to in that form. Which helps me have a little bit more like not be so like, oh, am I just wondering and indecisive and what. I'm just like, yeah, maybe it is just for that and it was such a huge blessing, and there's so many wonderful things that have come out of it for both of us, but it was not, I mean, it was just stressful for both of us too. And then she said, she said, how sure are you that you're polyamorous? And I was like, pretty fucking sure. And she said, I'm just not seeing that. Like, I see you need like a lot of touch and connection, deep emotional connection, but and I don't know. She has a little bit of a skew. She's like, I've never seen an open relationship work, blah, 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 which I do know people who it does work for, especially on the West Coast. But, so I can't tell how much was her kind of personal bias that was coming in, but she said that she just kind of sees me that I need to take these next couple years, sort of next year and a half or two or something, like exploring and connecting with people how I feel drawn to, but not getting back into deep partnership again. And that in about a year and a half or two that I would meet someone and they would be my twin flame. And she wasn't going to say yet if it was a man or a woman, but they would be very balanced, like masculine, feminine energy wise. And that like all this stuff that I'm working through now is going to make that hopefully supposedly much easier when we meet, that if we were to meet now, it would be like a train wreck, but then it'll be easier. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, avoid the train wreck. It's no fun.
No.
That's cool.
So I don't quite know what to make of it. I mean, I've read a little bit more since then, but and her relationship with her husband is like, he's been in England for the last 9 months, and like back at his parents' house, and I don't know if he's drinking, or I don't know what it is, but it just seems like it doesn't seem like a very um yeah, I'm like, wait, is this what it means to in flames? Like, it's part, I don't want that part, but maybe that's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Usually one is more awake than the other. Usually one has grown spiritually, more spiritually than the other, and they're more aware of just life, why we're here, and they're more aware of the connection, whereas the one that's still asleep oftentimes has addictions that they have to overcome, and to get themselves to a place spiritually where they recognize the power of the connection. And so hopefully, I've heard other stories too about, first I want to say that there is a lot of bullshit on the internet about twin flames.
Mm-hmm.
That is just somebody's fantasy. It is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And 99.9% of the people that you run into will not understand a twin flame relationship. It from the outside, it looks very obsessive compulsive. It looks dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obsessive compulsive. From the outside, it looks very much like that. But it is a connection like you've never ever had in your life with anyone that you've ever, think of the person that in this lifetime that you've loved deeply. And a twin flame relationship far surpasses that, even in terms of connection and I mean, you complete each other's sentences. You often will communicate telepathically with just a look, and know exactly what that person's thinking. The synchronicities are off the charts. It just, yeah, it's